Zuber and Company, fire forensic experts and forensic engineers. Seeking answers from ashes. Seeking answers.
Just imagine for a second your business, your whole livelihood, literally goes up in smoke. Your first thought is probably, thank goodness for insurance, right? But what happens when that safety net, that one thing you were counting on, turns into a 14-year legal battle? Well, today we are breaking down the incredible case of Ride Energy versus their insurer. It's a wild story of disaster, deep suspicion, and ultimately a landmark decision. Okay, so take a look at this timeline. It really sets the stage. A factory fire in 2011. The insurance claim gets flat out denied in 2013. But a final judgment, that doesn't come until 2025. I mean, think about that. 14 years. This isn't just some administrative delay. This is an absolute ordeal for a business that's just trying to get back on its feet. So the big question we're going to explore is, what on earth happened in those 14 years? All right, let's set the scene. Act 1, you've got a fire, and you've got an insurance policy. It should be simple. So, meet the company at the heart of our story, Ride Energy Controls. They were a manufacturer out in Haryana, making things like batteries, inverters, and power systems. You know, a real growing business with real employees making real things. And they did what any smart business owner does. They got themselves a comprehensive insurance policy, a standard fire and special perils policy to be exact. This was supposed to be their shield, their protection for their factory, their machines, and all their inventory if the worst should happen. And then, well, the worst happened. One night, around 1 in the morning, a massive fire breaks out. It was probably just a short circuit, something that could happen to anyone, but the damage was catastrophic. Their stock, their raw materials, everything they had in process, just gone. So after the fire, Ride Energy does what you'd expect, right? They file their claim, thinking help is on the way. But what should have been a pretty straightforward process, well, it quickly turns into Act 2, a total labyrinth of investigations, endless questions, and a whole lot of suspicion. Okay, so first, an independent surveyor is brought in to assess the damage, and the initial report is pretty clear. The loss is pegged at almost 71 lakh rupees. Now, you've got to remember this, because a surveyor's report is supposed to be a really critical, unbiased piece of evidence in any insurance claim. This should have been the starting point for getting paid. But nope, the insurance company pushes back. They object. So after a bit of back and forth, the surveyor issues a final report. And the number is now down to just over 52 lakh rupees. That's a drop of almost 19 lakhs. And you're probably thinking, okay, that's the final number then. But you'd be wrong. The insurer still wasn't satisfied. And this right here is where the whole story pivots. They hire 2 new investigators, and suddenly, the focus isn't on how much was lost in the fire anymore. No, it's shifted to something way more serious. An accusation of fraud, all centered on a couple of invoices from 2 suppliers. And that shift from just assessing the damage to now actively alleging fraud, well, it leads us to the absolute lowest point in this whole saga for Ride Energy. The claim isn't just getting reduced anymore. It's about to be rejected completely. And there it is, 18 months. 18 long months after their factory burned down, with their business just bleeding out, Ride Energy gets the official letter. Their claim was repudiated. That's the official term for completely rejected. They were getting 0, nothing. And the reasons they gave, oof, they were serious. The insurance company accused Ride Energy of misrepresenting facts, of submitting fake invoices from companies that they claimed didn't even exist, of hiding documents, and, here's the killer, of attempting to file a fraudulent claim. For any business, those are absolutely devastating things to be accused of. So with their business in ashes and now their reputation on the line, what do? Well, Ride Energy had one move left. And that brings us to Act 3, taking the fight to the National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission. So this slide basically boils the whole legal fight down to 2 key points. On one side, you have the insurer saying, hey, these 2 supplier invoices are fake. Our guys went to the addresses and the firms aren't there. But Ride Energy's defense was simple and honestly pretty powerful. They said, forget the addresses for a second. Just look at the bank records. Every single payment was made through legitimate bank transfers. The money trail was real. They basically argue that the insurer wasn't actually investigating. They were just stalling. So, with both sides laying their cards on the table, what did the commission decide? Well, the verdict was huge. It didn't just determine the fate of Ride Energy. It ended up reinforcing some incredibly important legal rules that matter to anyone with an insurance policy. This quote from the judgment is everything. The commission basically said, look, the insurance company never offered any real evidence to dispute the amount of stock that was lost. They found that the original surveyor's reports were totally credible and should have been accepted from the get-go. You can't just toss out an expert report because you have a suspicion about a couple of invoices. And here's another crucial legal point that came up. The commission pointed to an existing Supreme Court precedent. And this precedent sets a really vital rule. An insurance company cannot keep moving the goalposts. Whatever reasons they give you for denying your claim in that first official letter, that's it. They're stuck with them. They can't come up with new excuses later on in court if their first arguments start to fall apart. And so, after all that time, the final order came down. The commission ordered the insurance company to pay up. They had to pay the full, final assessed amount of over 52 lakh rupees plus 6% interest to account for that massive delay. It was a complete and total victory for Ride Energy. So why does this one company's story matter so much? Because this isn't just about Ride Energy. It's a powerful case study with some really important lessons for absolutely anyone who has an insurance policy. So let's break down what you should take away from this. First, that independent surveyor's report, it carries a ton of weight and can't just be ignored without solid proof. Second, your bank records are your best friend. They are hard, documented proof of your business dealings. Third, an insurer can't just throw around the word fraud. They need actual, concrete evidence, not just suspicion. And finally, remember that crucial rule. The reasons for denial are locked in with that first letter. This whole 14-year saga really leaves us with a pretty heavy question, doesn't it? We all buy insurance for peace of mind, to have that safety net. But what the Ride Energy case proves is that sometimes you have to be prepared for that safety net to turn into a battleground. It just goes to show how incredibly important it is to keep meticulous records and to really, truly know your rights.